Hi guys, it's BlazeJack3 and I'm back today with another video. Today, I really want to get into another One Piece theory of mine, of course. This theory is, of course, stating that the moon in the One Piece world is actually the third ancient weapon known as Uranus. As ridiculous as it may sound, just listen. I mean, it kind of makes sense to me. Like, it really honestly makes sense to me why Uranus would actually Uranus would actually be the moon. Because looking at the moon in One Piece, just looking at the ancient weapons, we already know that Pluton is a warship. Okay, a warship which is supposed to have the power to destroy whole islands. We already know that Poseidon, the ancient weapon, is Shirahoshi, which means, I guess, it's passed down through genetics or something like that. I think it's maybe along her family line. I'm not sure, I forgot. But that's supposed to be able to call the Sea Kings. And basically, and not just like Sea Kings in the area, it should be like around the world, which means like, I guess Shirahoshi could be able to call the Sea Kings and just bam, like a bunch of them come out of nowhere. And there are a lot of Sea Kings. I think even Shanks lost his arm to one, unless that was just a giant, fish or something. But I think that was even a Sea King. So they're not just like in Fishman Island. They're not just in some secluded island area. They're everywhere, all around the sea. And Uranus is, of course, we know nothing about Uranus except the name of it, just Uranus. And that's what got me to thinking, well, what if Uranus, of course, people will think like, okay, Uranus would have to be a planet, but this is the One Piece world that we're talking about. They don't have the planets that we have, at least not even the moons, because I think even by, like a globe or something, you've seen that the Earth, or at least the Earth in the One Piece world, had many moons before, but I think it's only one left. But still, I really think it's the moon, and why I think that is because I don't know. I do know, but okay, look at Pluton. All right, Pluton is a battleship, a huge freaking battleship, and all these ancient weapons are from the Void Century, right? And that's over 800 to like 900 years ago in the One Piece world. So that's a very long time. In a warship during that time, that means that they would have to be they would have to be advanced enough to actually know what that is, right? I guess, I don't know. But Pluton, we already know that Pluton is a huge warship with the ability to actually be able to destroy whole islands. And that honestly got me to thinking even on the other ancient weapons as well, especially Pluton, because Pluton, I kind of want to say that the world government already has it, and as ridiculous as it sounds, or at least have split it up or have a fraction of its power, because, well, I mean, look, they already have a buster call. Just from researching into it on Nico Robin's island, they sent a buster call in it, and Nico Robin was, at least I think for now, is the only one that survived. And they're able to sink a whole island. But I'm thinking that Pluton will at least be able to sink a whole island in like one blast. That's why it would probably be an ancient weapon. But it also got me to thinking, because they said that it was built at Water 7, and I'm like, wait, it was built at Water 7? That's impossible. At least not impossible necessarily, but we already know that Water 7 is just city built on 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 city, because of the tides of how they rise and they crash and all that stuff each year. So Water 7 is actually pretty huge underground, and that would mean that if the Pluton was there before and during the Void Century, well, if Pluton was there during the Void Century, that means that it would be the early stages of Water 7, right? Or at least, I guess, somewhat, right? So Does that mean that even 800 to 900 years ago that people were still, smart enough to develop an actual warship with like cannons and stuff? And this warship is supposed to be like huge, right? And it got me thinking, like, that's 800 or 900 years ago. Like, they don't even have flying machines yet. How in the world were they able to build a freaking warship 800 to 900 years ago in the One Piece world? Yeah, we can talk about our world because we had like pirates and colonies and British stuff back then, but that was made out of wood, and you had to load the cannons yourself. We're talking about a full-on warship, like a huge one. You know what I'm saying? The warship is even bigger than that the Noah that Joy Boy built that we saw on Fishman Island. It's way bigger than that, and that's huge. It took Luffy all his might to keep punching it, and he still didn't break it, and he was using Haki and Gear Third stuff with it. So this shows that the Pluton has to be huge, like super huge. Like, the scale of it has to just be whack, Which this might be going into, maybe the world government is lying about the Void Century, because that doesn't make sense to how they can build a warship 800 to 900 years ago. And Poseidon, I don't really know about that honestly, but for Poseidon, that said that it was around, the ancient weapon was around from 800 to 900 years ago. Okay, well, that's just genetics. But I think they said that with Shirahoshi that it skipped a few generations, right? And a few generations can be like what? A regular human lifespan can sometimes be, maybe like 70 years. In One Piece, it could sometimes, I don't know, they can grow old a lot of times. Whitebeard is really old, but not like old, but you know what I mean? He's really old. But there are people who age differently in the One Piece world. But it said it skipped a few generations, and we are given a broad time in which the Void Century was, right? So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it was only like a few people who actually had Poseidon, or who actually had the ability to call the Sea Kings, basically. Which of course you can't really get into the Poseidon one because come on, it's not that much to get into, really, honestly. But like I said, for the thumbnail, like I said, for the ancient weapon Uranus, I do think it's the moon. And why I think it's the moon? We already know that there was an ancient civilization on the moon, right? And they got split up into 3 subspecies. I forgot what they're called. I think like Jaya or something, or Shada or something, whatever it's called. But we already know that the species had wings on their back, right? Okay. So we all know that the species from the moon actually had wings on the back, and they actually left the moon because that the moon ran out of resources. But we already know that it still has some of the technology that it actually left behind. So I'm thinking not necessarily the moon itself, but maybe the moon is used as a tool, and the actual ancient weapon itself is inside the moon. And how Blackbeard probably links into all this is pretty much why I'm asking this question, and why I have to really back it up. So we already know that that they have wings. Well, look at this. We already know that Enel, he built a ship to go up to the moon to live and conquer and all that stuff, right? But have we even seen the last of Enel like at all lately? Like, honestly, have we? No. Now, of course, they're not gonna bring up every character back, and just show what they're doing right now, because that wouldn't make any sense. But he didn't necessarily lose, or he lost the fight with Luffy, but what happened to him? What's taking him so long up on the moon? Yeah, he's want to stay secluded, but what's the deal? What's up there? What kind of technology? Did he die? I don't know. But like I said, with Blackbeard, I think that he with his fruit, he wanted his fruit for a reason. And it's the dark fruit, and he wanted Whitebeard's fruit for a reason, not just for power, but I think it's something to deal with maybe the moon, or the technology they have on the moon, to find the One Piece for one, and to be king of the pirates. Now look at this clip that I actually have of Whitebeard talking about his fruit. It says the gravity of darkness that returns all to nothingness, and the power of earthquakes that destroys everything. Okay, now focusing on these words, it says the gravity of darkness and the power of earthquakes. All right, now the gravity, that of course gravity could mean in his fruit, it could be because he can make sort of black holes, so to speak, out of it, but not necessarily. Why did he need Whitebeard's power as well? I mean, yeah, it is powerful, but you would think that maybe he would try to go up to someone else to beat, you know? Just look at it like this. What if Blackbeard needs both of these fruits because he knows what is on the moon, is basically what I'm saying. What if he knows how to power that, and maybe he knows it's an ancient weapon? Because just listen to me. I think that also the moon is a link all the way back to the void century as well, which of course it is, but specifically, and not just the moon, even the sun. Now, I don't know if it doesn't blow your mind. It kind of blew my mind just thinking about it, but you know how like the sun, how they talk about the sun, like it's never really clear where the sun is in the One Piece world. It never really is. Yeah, you show the sun is shining, but when you look at Enies lobby always has sunlight all day, 24/7, 365. No clouds cover it. It's almost like a dome or something. There's always the sun over Enies lobby. Right? Like, isn't that kind of weird? Right? I mean, just thinking about it, it's like, oh man, they never get any sleep because it's never nighttime. But thinking about it, it's like, does that mean that there are like two suns? Because we've seen nighttime plenty of times in the One Piece world. But for Enies lobby, one place right next to Water 7, not necessarily right next, but the train tracks go directly from Water 7 to Enies lobby. And we saw that in the Water 7 arc, because they rode that train track. CP9 even rode it. Rob Lucci did. So those are two direct links right there. Not just that, the sun is always over Enies lobby. It never moves. They never have nighttime. So what about the rest of the world? How does that shift? So that must mean it must be the moon or something, if not another sun, right? That must mean that maybe the moon is casting a light and dark shadow upon the world, right? And it must change, it must mess with the tides some way. And it also must mess with Enies lobby directly, especially because you know the floating piece over that hole in Enies lobby, right? What if that's due to like the whatchamacallit? What if that's due to the moon not actually being there? Like, what if that's like gravity or something? Did the moon actually affect it? Like, why is that little piece of island floating? It never falls. And where does all that water go, right? Well, I think that maybe the One Piece is down there, but that's another story. But I'm thinking about it, and I think that maybe Blackbeard will probably need to use the dark fruit to use the power on the moon for gravity or something, and maybe he'll do something. Maybe he already knows what a One Piece is, or he has a clue to where it is. Maybe you don't necessarily need the poneglyphs. Maybe you just need the ancient weapons. And maybe that's what the whole thing in the One Piece world will actually be for, like the last war or something. Maybe he's gonna get all the ancient weapons or something. You never know. But it's like, and why would he need Whitebeard's? How did he take Whitebeard's stuff, right? Well, if the moon would actually be able to cast light and dark on the rest of the world because the sun can't, because it's always on Enies lobby, right? Doesn't that mean that Blackbeard will be able to switch it off, right? The light that's the moon is casting upon the world, and then he would actually be enveloped in total darkness, right? And when that happens, you already saw what happened when he was under that blanket with Blackbeard. It's a theory that because he was in total darkness, he was able to suck out the devil fruits. Well, if that's the case, if he darkens himself on the moon and probably the rest of the world, maybe at that moment he could steal the rest of the world's devil fruits, or he could put the world in 100-year century void, just like last time, right? Maybe the dark fruit is a direct cause of the void century because the world was so dark for 100 years, right? Like, doesn't that kind of make sense a little bit? Am I crazy or something? It just kind of makes sense a little bit, because maybe he even uses it to destroy the red line. Maybe there is technology where he can actually focus Whitebeard's power to send an earthquake to even shatter the red line or something. Maybe that's where the One Piece is, in Marriage War or something. Who knows? But it's possible for the dark fruit to be responsible for the void century, why no one has any record of it, because they were all probably in Blackbeard's in his black hole or something. Or maybe they were all just enveloped in darkness and no one could see anything. I mean it's something. Or maybe he actually starts to take all the devil fruits in the world and absorbs them. And maybe because he thinks that his body can handle two, maybe he thinks he can handle all of them. And maybe we'll see like maybe he'll like explode or something, or Luffy will have to beat him with just hockey or something. I don't know. But what do you think? Like the video, share it with your friends, and I will see you guys later.